What's up, curious chimpies? It's Nathaniel here. Sammy's not here, obviously, but he's in the podcast, which you'll see in just a moment. We forgot to do an intro, but I think for this episode specifically, to give you some more context behind it, it'll be easier for you to follow along. So I figured I'd just do the intro really quickly and say what's up to all of you, and I love you all. What else? Before I get into it, just if you haven't already, just click the subscribe button below. Like, we really appreciate the support we're getting. We're putting out videos weekly. We're staying consistent again, and we love you. And so likes, share, subscribe, whatever. And you know what? Send us a comment. We want to start engaging with you all and learning more about you. So for this episode, we had Dan Aponte on. He was on, I think, a week or two ago, and he was documenting the Trucker Convoy Protest in Ottawa in Canada. And a lot of developments have happened since. A lot of negative things have happened since. And he went back weekly and documented what he saw. And his work actually got really noticed by some big names. So I think he was retweeted by Jordan Peterson, Barry Weiss, Brett, the Dark Horse podcast. Brett and Heather both were using his work in some articles on their Substack. So Dan went back there and documented what he saw with the police forces kind of taking control of the situation and removing the protesters and kind of forcefully ending the occupation and the protest. So we spoke about what's currently happening. We're going to call this like the emergency podcast. So it's a lot about that. We also cut at some point just to see, because yesterday was when we filmed it, was the vote for the Emergency Act in Parliament. And so we checked the vote, and then we made a comment on it after. You guys will just have a swift, like a flowing episode. You won't even really notice, but for us, there's just for some context, there's before the vote and then after the vote. And then Dan shares some photography afterwards. So for the audio listeners, it's going to be more insightful to look at it on YouTube. I think I threw in a timestamp in the episode, so you can switch over to YouTube once the audio is done. But you can still listen. We tried to describe the photos, but it's probably better to see his work on the slideshow. It's pretty cool. What else? I think that's about it. I mean, it's a sad time in Canada. It's a big disappointment in what's going on, but you know, we're curious chimps. We're going to try to keep it on that. We're going to try to keep it on that positive vibe, but you know, hopefully we can all stand up and come together as humans, as Canadians and humans, and work our way through this and past this, because what they're going to be doing to those who attended these protests, what they are capable of doing, is a little bit scary with this emergency act. They can freeze your bank accounts, assets, all sorts of things, and it's pretty much whatever they want to do, they can implement under this new guidelines of the Emergency Act. So I'll leave you all at that. It's a great episode. We discussed a lot of things that are relevant to the times we're in, and then you get to see some of his work again, and it's really good work. So, we'll see you there. Peace. What's up, beautiful people? I'm Nathaniel Pearl.
And I'm Sammy Sheva.
And welcome to Curious Chimps Podcast, a show where we explore the infinite complexities of the human experience.
We do not endorse anything illegal, so please, consult doctors, do your research, and for the love of all that is holy, be safe. All right, let's talk about drugs.
Curious Chimps.
Dan the man, you're back.
I'm back, man.
Three times the charm, baby.
Sorry to all the curious chimps out there that I'm taking up all the airtime.
It's a limited airtime, so it's all good.
You're just like an honorary member of the podcast now.
Yeah. First it was Lily, and now it's me.
She's legacy.
Yeah, so I guess the reason I'm back is because I went to the Freedom Convoy Protest the weekend after I spoke to you guys. I got COVID, probably there. The reason why I say probably there is because I had a portrait project that I did. And so I was interacting with a lot of people, speaking to a lot of people. And then, so I was out for about 7 days. Oh, and by the way, I was vaccinated too. I was double vaxxed, still got COVID. So take that for what you will.
Yeah.
And then this past weekend, I was there again, which is on the heels of the Emergencies Act that Trudeau and the Liberals rolled out. And so they got to close the protests for the most part. Yeah. And so another interesting thing, some of your viewers may or may not know this, but the act was declared on Monday. And then members of parliament have 5 days to think about it, deliberate, and then they have a debate. It was set for last Friday. And then the House of Commons was cancelled because there was an emergency. So they couldn't vote on the Emergencies Act because there was an emergency. And then they pushed it to tonight. So on Friday, that's when, they were able to essentially, at first, compress all of the protesters onto 1 or 2 sections of Parliament. And then on Saturday, what they did was they dispersed all of the protesters and barricaded Parliament.
Yeah, I saw you sent me a video. I think you were taking it, and they just put up like these metal fences all around.
Yeah.
And you were commenting, you're like, they're trying to create to create space so there's no more traffic, but they're just starting more traffic by creating these blockades.
Yeah.
It's like replacing one blockade with another. It was
but this kind of blockade's way more serious because there is no movement. There is no one around Parliament.
Okay.
There are certain checkpoints that you have to enter by. And then through those checkpoints, that's where people are entering. And the only people who are entering right now are members of Parliament, police, and that's about it. So there's no more public around the streets of Parliament. And it's probably, so if you think of how Ottawa looks, you guys can probably Google it and look on maps, but to the north of Parliament is the river. And so everything is south of that, right? You've got the river, you've got Parliament, and then you've got Wellington Street is the main street that Parliament is on. And so I think it would be the 3rd street from Parliament. That's where the perimeter sort of starts. And I don't know how east and west it goes. But anyway, I just want to go back to what I was saying before, just so that we could sort of like appreciate what was done. The act was called on Monday. Parliament deliberates for 5 days, debates and votes on Friday as to whether or not we can remain in the Emergencies Act. The day of the vote, it was canceled. And that's the day that everything started. So they had the weekend to do everything that they wanted to do, and they're going to be voting on it now. So essentially, they circumvented the rules in order to get done what they wanted done. So even if the vote, so it would be great if in, the next half hour, the vote happens, we, cancel the Emergencies Act. But the fact remains that everything was done, right? The convoy was dispersed. The occupation, whatever you guys want to call it, it was dispersed. People were arrested. Barricades were put up, right? So like 10-foot double-walled fences.
Wow.
That's all around Parliament now. So yeah, there's definitely no traffic, and businesses are going to suffer because they're inside there, and you can't go inside there unless you're, a politician.
Yeah, I saw a tweet that was surprising where someone was like, "The police is worse than the convoy," and I was like, I'm not there, and I'm not a cop, I'm not a politician. I try to give it all like some kind of respect, or like I don't know the nuances, but like, how can people like live, like just bask in such irony? I don't get it. Like, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
this was bad. This was out of control. We're gonna, like, literally, like, push through some Emergencies Act that has pretty much never been used, and or has been used like in ridiculously crazy situations.
Right. Well, the details of it are that the War Measures Act was the sort of predecessor to the Emergencies Act. The Emergencies Act was sort of written out in its current form after the Constitution was written, which is 1982. So before that, for the War Measures Act was used for World War I and the October Crisis in 1970. That's when Trudeau, father, rolled out tanks in Montreal because of the was it the FLQ or something? But essentially, it was Quebec separatists that actually had stolen dynamite. There were 200 bombs that had gone off at that point. They had kidnapped a member of parliament and they had killed him. And that's when Trudeau Sr. decided to deploy the War Measures Act, which is the predecessor to the Emergencies Act. So technically, the Emergencies Act has never been used before, but it's also pretty recent, right? It was written out in 1982.
Just for context for our listeners that maybe aren't in Canada, two things. We're going to do a little bit of a cut at some point and then return because we're going to watch what happens with this vote for the Emergency Act, which is happening tonight. But you want to just define what the Emergency Act can do, like what power the government gets. I mean, there's a lot.
Sure. No, it's not just that.
Yeah.
It's that I don't know the details.
Yeah.
That's the thing is I just wouldn't feel comfortable sort of talking about everything that it would allow the government to do.
Okay.
But as an example, what's been done is rules like movement around Parliament is now deemed illegal. You can get arrested. The fact that people were at the protest, and this, I don't know if it's the Emergencies Act per se, or this is just something that they're trying to pass in light of the protests, but just the fact that people were at the protest, they can prosecute you and they can freeze your accounts. Okay, so this is another one that's really big, is they started freezing bank accounts of known truckers and protesters. And so I don't know if that's Emergencies Act specific, or is that just this protest specific because, the Trudeau government decided to say that the protest was essentially terrorist activity.
Yeah, they didn't use those words, but they were alluding to that, and they were saying somewhere in the lines that this is the word occupation keeps circling around, and people are calling it this occupation. You call it what you want. People are staying there overnight, but it is a protest, and this is really recent. This whole seizing your bank account and freezing the funds, and it happened. It kind of coincided with the Emergency Act, but I'm not sure if it's related either.
So before the Emergencies Act, they had disbanded the GoFundMe campaign. Give Send Go had actually already transferred $1.4 million to various accounts related to the truckers. TD froze those accounts, and that was before the Emergencies Act.
Okay,
which is why I'm saying I don't know if they're able to use the Emergencies Act to ensure that anybody's account that they state is related to the protests will get frozen. So actually, I have a friend who's a sheriff of mine. He called me today, and he's like, I just wanted to know if you're okay, and I wanted to know if you've checked if your accounts are still in working use, because at the protest, we're kind of going all over the place. Like, I don't even know how to start, but
it's all good.
On Friday and on Saturday, I noticed that there are a whole bunch of police officers like far behind the front line that just had cameras photographing and filming what was going on. And then one of the reporters had asked the new head of police in Ottawa, is that footage, is that video, photo footage going to be used to press charges on protesters? And he said, absolutely. This is going to take a long time, but we're going to go through video footage, associate it to people, and then we're going to prosecute them.
Okay.
So that means I might be in trouble having gone there simply to photograph what was going on.
Yeah, I've been hearing there was an interview with one of the sheriffs or one of the police spokesperson for the Ottawa Police, and he was saying that months to come they'll be finding people that were at this protest and charging them. So I saw that. I was on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And whether that's going to be valid or not, I'm not a lawyer, but this sounds like it could be a way to threaten people so they can. It's like another method to stop further protests going on. But
Further dissent,
Yeah.
right? It's like,
Yeah.
well, you know, like people are going to think twice
yeah, exactly.
before they you know, protest again, before they have some kind of a cause that they think government should be listening to. It might deter some people, but then again, it might not. It depends what's the topic,
Yeah.
right? There are certain subjects that seem to be taboo, and there's other subjects that seem to be applauded and championed for. And so I guess it just depends who's in power. And this is why what's going on is really scary, because the rules that so if you think of the endeavor of Canada as a game, right? We're trying to play a game. Okay, the game that we're playing is a free country where everyone's rights and liberties are upheld. And the way that you ensure that is you write certain kinds of laws. You have certain kinds of rules, and those rules ensure that when your team is not in power, you're still protected. And it also ensures that when you're in power, you can't abuse your power. This is the point of having rules and regulations and laws. We need them so that when we're not the ones in power, we can't abuse those. We can't abuse the power to, oppress people that we disagree with. And it just seems so short-sighted right now that the Liberals are choosing to use this essentially labor movement, this blue-collar protest, as the reason to start bending the rules, start moving the goalpost, and enact certain things that I think should be frightening to any Canadian. I saw an article today that this idea of being able to freeze accounts. Now again, I don't know the details of if it's specifically for terrorist activity, illegal activity, or just things like this, protests that they don't agree with, but they want to extend the ability to be able to freeze and seize accounts beyond the Emergencies Act. So this is a new thing that they just rolled out a few weeks ago. They rolled out the Emergencies Act, and now they want to keep some of those new powers that they had access to. So this is like this is what we're talking about. Are these the kinds of things that we want to be a part of what Canada stands for? And I don't think too many people who hear that idea of having your account frozen because the government doesn't agree with something you've done. And again, it's like you could start bending what does illegal activity actually count
it's so
as.
subjective, right? It's like
it's objective when you're the government and you get to write
exactly
who's a terrorist, who's involved in illegal activity.
But that's when it's dangerous, when it's such broad terms, where it's like unlawful activity, let's call it, or unlawful protests would for sure fit that category. So what considers an unlawful protest when you're creating the rules of the game? Like before the Trucker Convoy, like this concept wasn't in theory a unlawful event. It was people came to protest, and then it kind of morphed into this new idea how to stop them, and now it's becoming this unlawful occupation, and now they're rolling out these new rules, and then in the future, are they going to go even one step further if a different protest starts to create more disruption in a city or in a capital or something like that? So that's where it gets dangerous, is that line is getting squiggly, and then they're just going to take that space, you know?
I don't even think it's squiggly. Like you said it perfectly before. It's not even about precedent anymore. It's being done now. Like this is crazy. Like other, like people within and without Canada are comparing the actions of our government to like crime and tyranny. You know, and it's like they're going to misuse words, rearrange words,
Redefine words.
redefine words. To really just be like, you are now the thing that we're allowed to take to freeze the bank accounts to.
Exactly.
Like you are now the thing that is like, what's the word? Like you're at the mercy of our brand of justice, essentially.
Sure.
And what weirds me out is how many people are okay with it. That's the scary ass part for me. I don't want to change the direction of the conversation too much, but like I'm sure everyone feels this, and a lot of my friends on Facebook that were like, fuck these people, they just went quiet. And I don't know if they're just overthinking about like COVID and protests and everything. I don't know, but like maybe some people are like, this is getting fucked up. And a group of those people might be like, why didn't they just stop? Like blaming the victim in a sense, you know?
Sure.
But it's like, I don't know, it's just so in your face. It's so obvious. There's no justification for this. They were never violent. Maybe there was a few times that they were. I wasn't there. But apparently they weren't. The cops even say they weren't. They're just breaking the rules. We made new rules. You can't be here. Now you're breaking them. Now we're going to move you guys. And then Trudeau starts like paying crazy rewards to like tow truck people who are willing to take the trucks away. And apparently there's people there who are, I mean, this is, I didn't look into this deeply, but there's like, some kind of like international police that showed up, like something outside of Canada. Like, is that real?
So, I saw, I think it's North Bay Airport. Apparently that is an airport that does service UN planes. But yeah, there is a rumor that went around. I don't know, basically I don't know if this has been debunked or not, but yeah, there were UN planes at North Bay Airport, I believe it is. But let me just add something to that, okay? I don't know if those planes are there because they're being serviced, because, you know, Ottawa is the capital and it's close by and it's kind of like a private airport.
It doesn't even matter. All the other stuff is still valid.
Yeah, but maybe something to add credence to the fact that it could have been a UN plane is the fact, because they wouldn't need to use those planes. But anyways, there were police from everywhere across the country. This is one of the aspects of the Emergencies Act, is that you can call on police forces from everywhere. So there were police from Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Toronto, Quebec, and you could see it on their badges, right? Or not their patches. So maybe that could be
just different uniforms.
A reason why? No. Maybe they're using those planes to taxi the police from those cities.
Okay.
I'm saying it could have been that. At the same time, you know, you've got military that use commercial airlines all the time, so they could have done that too. Because that to me was really surprising. Is you're just looking at all these patches and it's like, oh, this is Vancouver police, this is Calgary police, and the police kept sort of like cycling in shifts, right? They would be there for like an hour or two, and then they would switch lines.
Like a soccer game.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, what they were doing is extremely stressful. I could see that some of the cops just did not look like they wanted to be there. And again, my friend who's a sheriff.
Good.
So he's a sheriff in Alberta. I don't know which provinces have sheriffs. I don't think there are any in like Quebec and Ontario. But anyways, he was telling me that those people are voluntold, right? They're not like volunteering to do this. They're kind of like, we need you to go there. And he told me that, look, if you're told to do something like that and you decide not to,
You're fucked.
you're kind of screwed, in the sense that your supervisor or their supervisor is going to make it difficult for you, and also the possibility of moving up within the force becomes harder. So, and this is, again, I don't want to make it seem like it's some weird, creepy, terrible conspiracy, but this is the kind of thing that would happen if you were working in private industry and someone asks you, hey, can you take this one for the team? And you say no, it's going to look unfavorable for you in the future. So I just want to make sure that I'm not saying that it's some sort of a weird sort of...
But no, I think that happens in most kind of workplaces where it comes in that kind of context of take one for the team, and if you don't, it's like...
Yeah, politics is not just in
it's
politics. It's everywhere.
Mm-hmm,
And I mean, we don't have to get... Again, it's not about conspiracy theories or precedent and what's going to happen in the future. Like, things like that are just logical and common. The thing with the cops and the cameras, and like, imagine they're scrubbing like the internet and Facebook, and like something, maybe a lot of that is aggregated through the QR codes, or it will be. These things are real. They're happening. We don't have to worry about conspiracy theories and like lizard people or something. You don't have to go crazy. Who cares if the moon landing was fake? This is happening, man. Man, you gotta say man at the end of shit like that.
Yeah.
And it's fucking like, it's just uncomfortable. It's just like disrespectful. It's just not how you run a country. It's not how you treat people. It's fucking wrong. We don't have to mince words here.
Yeah.
It's fucking wrong.
Yeah.
They were doing something uncomfortable. They were fucking with Ottawa. They were fucking with Parliament. They put trucks in. They blocked service roads and shit that are important for circulation. Guess what? The fucking judge says stop honking. They stop honking.
Yeah.
Hey, you people, you fucked with the homeless. Okay, we're going to feed all the homeless. It's like, you
Yeah,
give
it's
them 2 reasons to look bad, they'll give you 100 reasons that we don't look bad. And then they even unblocked one of the bridges to be like, look, we're going to be here for a while, so to not be total dicks, use this fucking bridge. I mean, I don't know the details. I don't know the geography. I don't know really what the ramifications are of them staying, not staying, opening one bridge, opening all the fucking streets. But like, these people are there for a reason. Their lives are being pressured. They're losing their jobs, losing their house. They have kids. So do the cops. So everyone there doesn't want to be there, and they're all, it's their livelihoods on the line.
Yeah.
Like, and who's pulling the strings?
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to add to that. It's like, these are not terrorizers. These are the working class, the pretty much the essentials of what keeps a city and country going. And they are speaking up. And it's like our first podcast where you were saying, when the rich sneeze, the poor have pneumonia. And it's like they're coming up and talking. And then you see on the TV, they blast these storylines that they were destroying or vandalizing the statues. And then, like Sammy said, they came and corrected it the next day and cleaned it. And then they said something about,
That's
got
everyone. That's our timer
Yeah.
for the vote.
we're going to go see this vote in a second. But I just want to finish my thought.
Yeah, of course.
And they just put stuff on the statue.
Yeah.
They didn't even vandalize it like
Well, that-
badly.
They stretched a lot of truths here.
Yeah.
We already know that.
Anyway.
But so then the homeless thing, then they started feeding people. And like everything the news kept slamming on these people,
They came
would-
back 10 times better.
They would correct it because that's not what they're there for. And obviously that wasn't reported. So the image of who they are is being formed by the media. And these are just regular people that are really just fucking fed up with their livelihood on the line. And they're coming out, they're being portrayed as almost terrorists. And it's like these acts, like this emergency act, if someone is not really paying attention and they see what's happening, they're going to think these are horrible people out there that are terrorizing Ottawa.
They call them anti-vax, even though 90% of them are vaccinated.
But-
But it's on the heels of COVID.
But
right?
also not even just anti-vax, but racist. Like that's like the main narrative that these are racist anti-Semites, you know, and that's what Trudeau recently just called the Conservative Party. He said you guys were siding with them. And I think that backlashed huge,
Yeah, that backfired pretty hard.
but it was still said.
Is he like taking a dive? Is he like the heel in this weird like charade? Like that's what it
No,
looks like
no,
sometimes.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. But to add to your point that you were saying that, these are people who are aren't able to work, losing their livelihood, etc. So many of them aren't actually. They are vaccinated, so they can work. The fact is they're there because
It's a
the
very good point.
mandates, the vaccine passports, like Nate, like I told you, I was double vaccinated. I was planning on getting my third dose. I don't have to anymore because I got COVID and I got over it, and so I'm more protected than someone with 3 or 4 doses. But I was also sympathetic to the cause and to the protest because I did not like this idea of having to show my vaccine passport. I didn't like the idea that people I knew couldn't go the places that I was going, right? Couldn't go to restaurants, couldn't go into movie theaters, and then ended up not being able to go to Walmart, right? Like, who goes to Walmart? Poorer people. And look, socioeconomically, most of the people who are vaccine hesitant were people who were lower on the socioeconomic scale. So they're already getting hurt. COVID was already much more difficult for them to live through. And on top of that, we're telling them you can't go to Walmart where they were able to buy in bulk, cheap, same as with Costco. You can't go to like Home Depot to get things to repair your home. Like
Canadian Tire for a while had it also.
Yeah. The SAQ, the SQDC, all that stuff. Like, yeah, I could go anywhere I wanted.
Yeah.
But I knew a lot of people who couldn't. And I did not like that. It's un-Canadian.
Exactly.
That's well said. And like the truckers going through the borders, thinking about 10% of their, co-workers or whatever, just out of a job.
Yeah.
Like their truck collecting rust, or they have maybe a lot of trouble going through, and maybe that's costing them time, and then they lose their job. Like there's so many factors, but like it seems like unnecessary, and it's ruining people. And those are the people we're talking about. There's a justification for their emotions and for their actions. It's like it's not rocket science.
But here's where, if everything worked as advertised from the beginning till now, you get the vaccine, the transmission stops, because that's the initial narrative. And yes, variants came and it kind of obviously muddied the water and made shit a lot more complicated. But to the fact that, like you were stating, you're double vaxxed, you just got COVID, it's like that kind of destroys the whole narrative of how a vaccine passport is safer.
Do you know who else was double vaxxed or maybe even triple
yeah.
vaxxed? Trudeau, and he got COVID just before the trucks came in. So like, like this guy's telling everybody get vaccinated. It's the only way, and he literally gets COVID in the middle of him telling people not to come to protest for the very vaccines that he's trying to force onto everybody.
It's almost comedic at this point.
The thing is, again, look, it's not about being anti-vax or not. It's the fact is 85% of Canadians are vaccinated. 90%, for instance, of Quebecers are vaccinated. We're never going to reach 100%. It's you get to this asymptote, right? 100% is an asymptote. You're never going to reach it. You have to put so much more pressure, so much more effort to maybe get people a little bit higher. There are some people who actually just will not be able to get vaccinated, right? For health reasons, they're immunocompromised, etc. Some people cannot get vaccinated. That counts as part of that 10% or 15% that hasn't gotten the vaccine yet. So we're pretty freaking close.
Yeah, and even some people that may have had the first vaccine and had some type of reaction, even though it's a small percentage, and then they don't want to opt for the second, they opt out of the second vaccine. Where do you put these kind of people in the category?
Sure.
That's a really good. I never even thought of that.
There's
no way they're getting their fucking second dose.
I had a friend who had a neurological issue after the first dose for whatever reason, and she doesn't want to get the second, and rightly so. If she's terrified or nervous, is she considered a terrible person or a bad person because of this?
Anyone would be doing the same, probably.
By the law, she is.
I have a friend who also did have a neurological issue. She went to the doctor. The doctor said, "Oh, this is bad. Go see a specialist, so that they can to look at allergic reactions, etc., so that we can assess whether or not you did have an allergy to some of the additives of the vaccine. Cool. Went to make an appointment. 6-month wait. So it's a 6-month wait. The vaccine passport has already been rolled out. She wasn't able to work.
Wow.
She has a friend who is a surgeon, and he was like, okay, let me speak to someone. We'll try to get you in. She got in within a couple of weeks. Went to the allergist. The allergist said, oh, no, you're fine. You know what? It probably wasn't the vaccine. Do you want me to give you the vaccine now? You're in the hospital, so if something happens, you're in the safest place possible. She's like, well, wait, I came here to get tested to see if I have an allergic reaction. You're telling me it's not that. You're not going to test me. And you're trying to console me and convince me to take it because I'm in the hospital, so if something bad happens, I'm right here. Like, just test me. Test me first. This is what I came here for. Yeah. So even there, like you said, like
what?
There is a certain like resistance to the idea that maybe some people are allergic to things or are reacting to things in the vaccine. And the problem is it's very difficult for a healthcare practitioner to admit that if all we've been told is that they're 100% safe and they're 100% effective, right? Like, this is the problem with really bad media that is not transparent, is you get caught in this lie and then you don't really have a good way of mitigating what happens due to the lie, right? This is one of the issues, is if we're being told time and time again that they're 100% safe, they're 100% safe, they're effective, and then it turns out, well, they're not actually that effective. Oh, and it turns out there are some people who have been getting, adverse reactions. What do you do after you've told everybody the same thing over and over again?
Yeah.
And I mean, you're
sort of you're caught in your own lie, right?
And
like you're a prisoner to.
But
we're caught in the lie too. Like that's
sure.
That's the point that you had. Like I'm just picturing like a doctor who doesn't dare even like play with the idea that it might be the vaccine in like a kind of self-censoring way. You have administrators and constituents who are like, don't push back on this. Like that's gonna look bad for you. We're not gonna help you. We're not gonna protect you. They might not even have to say that. There might just be some like dude who got like shit canned like right next to you, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna fall into place like really fast. And I never thought of it that way. It's a really good point. Like, it's not just the lie and the obvious, let's say, I don't know, lie is a hard word. Like, maybe it's just what they believed at the time, and there's kind of like a lag. Yeah. But there's so many, like we said before, like politics and everything. So it's I don't know, it just makes me sad.
Well, it's been very inconsistent with the information coming out, and there hasn't been much, I wouldn't say apologies, but corrections.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree.
And that, I think, was the biggest mistake that these our talking heads made, is that they didn't come out and humbly explain themselves. Instead, they kind of doubled down on what they've been doing and just pushed even harder on what they're trying to accomplish. And I think that's a big factor in a lot of this as well.
Yeah. And to maybe also play devil's advocate, like, this whole thing is unprecedented. Everything was happening very quickly, right? Even the fact that we're able to get any sort of vaccine within like a year is a huge scientific feat, right? And so that's the thing, is with more honesty, with more transparency, and unfortunately, this is what people will say. People say things like, if you're too honest, if you're too open, it's very confusing and people aren't going to understand, right? People aren't going to understand that, the study's only 3 months long, and so we don't necessarily have all the long-term effects. So let's just stick to the story. And the story is that in the population that we looked at, it was something like 75,000 people, mostly safe. And in terms of long-term effects, like, of course we don't have that because the vaccines, like, we literally just rolled them out, and like, we're printing the mRNA and injecting it right into people immediately, right? To test them. Just to add one other point, I have a few friends who are doctors, and some of them will say things like, do you want the official answer, or do you want my personal opinion, right? So, for instance, with things like, I have some friends, they're pregnant. They're 2 months pregnant at the time that the vaccine came out. At first, they were saying if you're pregnant, you don't have to get the vaccine. And then a few months later, they said, okay, women who are pregnant can get the vaccine. It's completely safe. Don't worry about it.
I read an article. They're like, and then your baby will be immune. They were like, do it.
Okay, I
Yeah.
actually didn't know about that. But the point is this. The cohort of pregnant women that were administered the vaccine were in their 3rd trimester, right? So how do you know that there are no effects in the 1st trimester, right? When cells are the most fragile, right? Where there's the least differentiation in terms of the cell and the cell type. That study wasn't done. So they took the 3rd trimester study, said, look, the babies came out fine, the mothers were fine. Let's just say it's fine for all pregnant women, whether it's 1st, 2nd, or 3rd trimester. So these are the kinds of things where it's like, as a doctor, you're supposed to say, yes, they're safe, they've been tested on pregnant women, but the details matter. They were tested on 3rd trimester women, not 1st, not women trying to conceive, right? That's a whole other thing too, right? Trying to conceive is what, pre-trimester, you know what I mean? So
I mean, but the details beget questions in a way, right? And then you require more details. So if someone's like, hey, look, this is a new vaccine. We busted our ass. It's a fucking miracle. We don't know if it's going to work. It's probably going to work. We don't know what it's going to be in terms of side effects. We did some small trial. Like, you just go into the details that you just went into essentially. But then it's like, okay, why? Oh, because we don't want to overrun the hospitals. Because everyone's getting sick all of a sudden, and a lot of people are scared that they are sick, and the hospitals just can't handle it. Oh, why? Because the hospitals can't handle shit every year. Oh, why? Crickets. I don't know why. I didn't look deep enough into it. Like, if you're that 5-year-old annoying kid that asks why, then like Big Daddy government's gonna be like, well, we're mismanaging your money. We lost billions of dollars over here. These guys were corrupt. We have an army. We're trying to do things with another country. We owe so much money to China. Like, I don't know. I honestly, I'm so ignorant when it comes to politics.
Sure.
But like,
right, it shows the weaknesses of an already fragile healthcare system, for instance.
and it's, I mean, as a group of people, you're never going to get that to happen because there's always going to be weak links. But like, person to person, if someone can be humble like that, then you're like, oh, you fucked up, and like, I don't like you right now, but I trust you way more.
Sure.
So I might take that vaccine now because you're telling me to take it, and you're also telling me why you're a fuck up. So we're never going to get that. We're just going to get them fucking up so hard. They're trying to clean their shit while they're shitting. And the conservatives are like vultures. Like, they're like, you guys are fucking up. We're going to win next election. Like, they're just fanning the flames. And I don't want to be cynical. I don't think much is going to change if you just like grab some other, the other wing of the bird, as they say. Like, I don't see a way for them to have been honest, to have treated us like intelligent people who are radically informed compared to the last generation, right? I unconsciously pointed at my pocket because of cell phones.
But with the lack of accountability or correction, you get the rise of conspiracy theories.
That's the thing, is when you aren't clear, when you don't give details, those, like, that information that creates a void, and conspiracy theories fill up those voids. That's the thing. When you don't explain why, when you don't give those details, well, imaginations just run loose.
You can't see the monster. It's scarier. Totally.
I feel like a real apology, we're talking about 2 years ago in the making, but if something down the line, like for example, the mask thing where they said it didn't work, you don't need masks, and then they switched it right away. And it was like, forget what we said before kind of thing. If there was that's a small example, but if there was like an apology, I would say explaining why their decision shifted, that probably would have gained a shit ton of trust. Obviously short-term anger, but then, oh, you guys corrected what you said. Okay, whatever. That's going to create some trust. But going from one narrative to the next and then just going like that without ever looking back, you're creating all sorts of alternative theories and reasons, and then you're creating distrust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's... And so this is the tough spot, I think, that politicians are in. First off, their main purpose isn't to serve us, it's to get reelected. That's their main purpose. And that's a big issue, okay? But in terms of them acknowledging a mistake, right, this idea of the noble lie for the masks, I don't know what the right answer is, because when you admit that you've lied, then you give people the ability to use that as a precedent to not listen to you in the future. Right now, they've doubled down and said, no, it's because the science wasn't out, right? The science was unclear, and then we realized that masks were beneficial. And anyway, healthcare workers and doctors were the ones who really needed the masks. When you put it that way, you create a huge amount of distrust, but you don't have people saying, remember when you lied to us and you admitted that you lied to us? How do I not know that you're lying to us now, in the future, etc.? And I think that's this weird problem that we're in. And so lies have to be papered over with more lies, so that even though we all know why they said masks don't work, we just don't have proof that it was because they didn't have surge protection for PPE, right? That's the truth. And just like with toilet paper, everybody went nuts, right? Imagine, like, everyone went nuts to buy toilet paper because it was in short supply, high demand. And so it's like, okay, imagine that happens with masks. So they lied about it. Again, I'm not justifying what they did.
But he gives a good reason behind it. But off topic, but how did that toilet paper thing start? Was that a
I have
crazy
no,
ad
I don't
campaign?
even remember. I don't even remember how or why.
Because if there was an ad campaign or something, that was genius.
Well,
Just reminds me of the stock market, right?
But like people
bunch of
stocked
people
up on things.
People get scared.
People stocked up on things, but toilet paper was like the panic, which was so interesting.
I know.
Or was it the headline? Did it just happen in a couple places? I don't even know.
Well,
was it really?
If you
and
went
then
to
that
grocery
made it
stores,
worse.
the toilet paper aisles were empty the whole
A
time.
lot of aisles were empty sometimes. Though,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I don't know. It's like, imagine.
It's kind of funny.
So
I had a fucking bidet the whole time. I was laughing.
Right. It's that's the thing of all the things. Is like when I heard that. So I had some friends who worked in government, and they called me on March 13th. That was the Friday before March 16th, which is when lockdown first started. They're like, okay, the government's going to shut down. Things are going to get difficult. You should stock up on things. Okay. I went to the grocery store. I bought things like, dried rice, dried beans. I bought things like frozen fruits because I figured that was going to go. Yeah. And I was like, I need to make sure I've got like vitamins and vitamin C and shit. It's like, I don't want to get scurvy in the middle of winter just being. And I wasn't like fucking toilet paper. It's like toilet paper. Okay, so I took a huge shit. I'll just like take a shower or something. It's like you have other means of getting clean.
Maybe
I thought
it
was
just
ridiculous.
looks, maybe like, like it's a big package. Like one guy comes in, buys 4, and there's like this void in the shelf.
I think it just exposes how unprepared everyone's psyche was and how irrational you can become under high stress situations.
Mm-hmm.
And
All
then
the conspiracy theorists were fine. They all have like
They're all
bags of-
preppers. They
Yeah,
all
they're-
had their bunkers. Their bunkers are totally full. They're like, I got water for years. I got food for.
they seemed like they were on point for a while, you know.
Yeah.
Because we
You're
didn't
gonna
know
be
the
right
direc-
eventually.
we
Yeah.
didn't know the direction
That's
at the
the
point, so they were like, "Fuck, were they right the whole time?"
Yeah,
kinda, you know.
Dude, I remember buying like a 20-kilo thing of flour. I bought things like because I was like, I'm gonna make my own fucking bread. Like this
Yeah.
was even before the whole craze. It was just because I had already been making bread,
Yeah.
and I was like, well, flour is a
Gotta keep
good
making bread.
source of calories, right? Or not flour, but bread is. And
Yeah.
I was just like, basically, what's the densest source of calories? And then beans, like dried beans
Yeah.
for the protein and stuff, and batteries. Like those are the things that I had got. Was like
You're a logical man.
frozen fruit, frozen fruits, because I figured fresh fruit was gonna be hard to come by. Dried beans, dried rice, flour, and that's it. And batteries and like just and then like wine, like boxes of wine. but I knew that's not gonna last long.
Yeah. There's I'll put this out there. It was when shit hit the fan and things locked down, it was a scary moment for all of us.
Absolutely,
You know,
man.
you'd be stupid to say, you'd be a liar to say you weren't scared.
Mhm.
Everyone had their own form of trauma about this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So me and my friends were having like scared, I guess I don't even know what to do, like a circle jerk for fear.
Mm-hmm.
And we would just talk on the phone every night till like 2 a.m. Like, what the fuck's gonna happen? We
Oh,
just
yeah,
stocked up,
yeah,
we need
yeah.
to get survival bags. So we all agreed to go to fucking Canadian Tire, get a survival bag. I had like my traveling backpack that I took to Thailand.
Yeah, like a 60-liter.
Yeah, I think like 70 liter.
Yeah,
just
yeah.
just so I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna stack this thing up with a rope
And if you
also-
need to go, you can
I
just
have it,
fucking
yeah.
go. It's
So
like put Lily in the back, and,
Yeah, and you're
just-
out of
yeah,
there.
Yeah.
because you don't know. So we went to Canadian Tire and we were just buying survival gear, and we're going down the aisles of like the survival camper stuff,
And it was low.
it was almost empty.
Yeah.
And we're okay, let's start taking it. So we're taking our sit, and there's two other dudes stacking up on shit too. They're like, "Oh, you're preparing, eh?" And we're like, "Yeah, I guess."
Yeah.
They're like, "Yeah, us too. Good luck, man." And we props,
Yeah.
and then we go down another aisle, the gun aisle. And there's like, I guess it's more ammunition in Canada, but there is some gun sections
Mhm.
empty.
Yeah.
Everything was fucking empty. All the bullets,
It got scary, man.
all the
It
guns
got
were
scary.
gone.
I know.
The worker was telling us, yeah, that they cleared the shelves like day one. And we're like, okay, shit hit the fan, you
Mhm,
know? And
mhm.
I'll never forget that moment. It just, we were prepping our survival bag. Two other guys were prepping it, and all the guns were missing, you know?
Yeah.
Good memories.
Yeah. Good times.
But
good
now I have a
times.
survival bag, and it's super handy for any time.
Yeah.
I
You
got
could
some
go
waterproof,
camping.
waterproof
turn it
matches. I
down.
got rope.
Waterproof. Do you have like those cool straws where you can?
Yeah,
drink out
man,
of a
I got it
puddle and
all. I
stuff?
got like a fucking all-weather proof blanket that'll keep you warm.
Do you have flares?
Fantastic.
Do you have flares?
Fuck, I gotta get flares.
Flares. There we
That's
go,
it.
man. There we go.
Fuck, I need a flare. And I had a shit ton of Cliff Bars that I stacked in there. I'm like,
Oh yeah, yeah,
Did
yeah.
those stay good?
For a while, like a year.
I'll eat that shit 10 years later. I'll give a fuck.
Yeah.
So-
You could.
Yeah, it's a best before.
Yeah,
If the best
it's a
before is
suggestion.
year,
Yeah, it's
that
a
thing's good for
suggestion.
Yeah.
decades, man.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
Jesus! Should we go do the thing? Should we watch?
Yeah,
the
yeah.
thing?
Let's watch the thing, and then I could show you guys some of the photos if you guys want.
Yeah, maybe
I'd love to.
we'll do a little slideshow even. We'll
Cool.
see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone, we'll be back. You don't know that, but we know that.
Ciao.
What? Learn.
Well, this year's I was doubling it up.
Double my. Yeah. Are we recording right now?
Yeah, we're
Let's not put that in.
and we're back.
And we're back. So, do we talk about the vote quickly? We'll
Let's
just
go over
say
this
what-
fucking bad news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take it-
So
take it
essentially,
away,
the
Dan.
Emergencies Act is going to continue. So, what was it? 181 to 150 something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're still under a state of emergency, everybody. So
I think till February 28th. Was it something like that?
February 28th is when the House of Commons is going to deliberate.
Whether to continue or not.
I
Or do
I
just
don't
don't
even know.
Yeah.
Like Viva Frey was saying, this has to go to Senate now, and it might be turned down there, but
Highly unlikely.
I don't know, because if the Emergencies Act is enacted after it goes to Senate, Justin Trudeau had asked for 30 days. So, so 30 days from last Monday.
And like we said before, that gives them the power to freeze bank accounts.
With no court order.
No court
with
order.
No, yeah.
Do you know any other off the top of your head, or just if whoever's listening, maybe just go research and verify?
Yeah, I would say
Yeah.
look it up. I think that's what we need to do after
Yeah.
this.
It's nothing good, that's for sure.
Oh, what they can do? Well, I don't know. That's the scary one. That's like not gonna turn heads. You know, they can
Freeze
throw-
assets.
freeze assets.
Yeah, but think about that as if you're a family and you attended these protests, and the fucking cops have footage of you, and then they enact the Emergency Act and decide to freeze your account, and now you have no access to money.
Yeah,
You know, so what's your next step?
but they can also throw you in jail by decreeing things now. So that
Yeah.
becomes instant law, and it's like
Yeah.
you're not allowed to protest this way or in this place.
Or
and
you're
if you
flagged.
do, you're fucked.
Or you're flagged for the rest of your life now. You know, like
Yeah.
like
and they can maybe detain
we were
people. We
joking-
can look it up after. I'm
we
sure
were-
there's like a comprehensive article or something.
yeah, but like we were saying before while we were watching, like you were documenting it then, and now in theory, because you were there, you could be part of this whole thing of whatever they're trying to implement. So that's like,
Yeah, and like I said before, the head of Ottawa Police did say that that's what they're going to do. They're going to pursue everybody that they can identify. And I know that they can identify me because I was speaking to police officers. At one point, there was the cop with the camera looks at me, points at me, and goes like this. And so I
gives you a thumbs
wave.
up.
He said he takes a picture. He goes like that, and he goes like that, like thank you. So it's like
Hmm.
you're kind of like baiting me to take a picture.
Yeah.
And then so that you can use this to prosecute me later. It's weird. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. So I mean, I guess the first thing I'll do really quickly is show you some of the work that I had done, which was picked up by a few media outlets.
Sweet. Just for the audio listeners, if you want to switch to YouTube, the timestamp from here on till the future, I don't know what our time will be. Let's say about 57 minutes in. Go onto the YouTube channel and you can watch this if you want to see his work. If not, we'll try to describe it audio to the audio listeners, but it's really worth checking out visually.
So the second week, I wasn't actually supposed to go to the convoy, but I just didn't feel like I could stay in Montreal when something historic is happening just 200 kilometers away. I was supposed to meet up with a bunch of friends and have dinner, and then my wife and I were talking that Thursday night, and she's like, you really need to go. This is important. So don't feel bad. Tell your friends why you can't, meet up and explain to them and tell them that you're going to see them, we'll reschedule. It's not a big deal. And I was like, okay, that's what I'll do. And then I had set out to do a certain kind of portrait project because, again, mainstream media was essentially slandering all of the people at the protest. And what I wanted to do is show their humanity and give them some dignity that mainstream media was not affording them. Okay? So at first, I had set out to photograph in a style by a photographer called Richard Avedon. There's a really well-known photo essay that he did. It's called The American West. And what he did was he went out and he photographed people in something like 130 different towns. And these were just, shirt off your back, salt of the earth, working class people. And that's why that sort of was influencing the style that I want to shoot at. So what he did was he had this white background, almost like what you see sort of like high key fashion right now. You see people like in their clothes, whatever fashion clothes. I sound like an idiot. And just like a white background with like a hard spotlight type of a flash.
Okay.
And so he did something like that, but it was using natural light. He used a really old camera. This was done back in like the 60s or the 70s, but he used a large format camera. You guys could look up what that is. It's just a huge camera, those old school cameras with like that accordion in the front and like the scoop on their back. And anyways, it gives you a lot of really great detail. But when I got there and I had my flash, I had my white drape, I spoke to one of the truckers and I was like, can I put this on the side of the truck to have portraits taken? He said, absolutely, for sure. So my wife and I tried to set it up, but it was so cold. It was like minus 25 that day. There was no way to stick the fabric onto the wall of the truck. It was so cold that the tape was like ungluing. So I had to sort of like shift gears really quickly and just find an interesting spot to take the portraits. And so I decided to take the portraits in front of this Peterbilt grill. Peterbilt is a type of truck.
Just want to note for the audio listeners, like that's a great point. Is like how cold it was, how cold it is right now in Canada. And that these people have been there for the past 3 weeks.
Yeah,
voicing their real concerns and standing up for what they believe in these harsh conditions. We even went through like a couple blizzards in the past 3 weeks, and
and it was. I mean, a week ago it got warmer, which was really nice. It was like 0, -5, but the first week it was minus 25, minus 30. The second weekend I was there, it was minus 20, minus 25. You know, like you're in the shade and it's minus 25. You're in the sun, it's like minus 20. And then this past weekend, it was probably about minus 15 or so during the day, minus 20 at night. So I actually have frostbite on my right foot, and my 2 toes are still numb.
Really?
Because my feet were just numb for like 6 hours. I was there from about 2 p.m. till 9:30. And I mean, I'll come back, but like just to give you an idea of how cold it is, you know, I'm wearing winter boots and snow pants and 2 layers and scarves and hats and all that stuff, and it was freezing. Anyway, so this was actually the first portrait I took. Again, this is not the look I wanted for these portraits, but I had to make do with what was going on and what I had access to. And originally I actually wanted the participants to look directly at the camera. But this is the first photo that I took, and I saw the look in her eyes, this sense of dignity and pride, and I just said, this is how I'm going to make all the portraits. I'm going to have them not look at the camera. I'm going to have them look. She was actually looking to Parliament. Parliament was just over my right shoulder. Wow. And I was like, that's it. So again, it's funny. You set out to do something. You have a vision of what it's going to look like, why you want it to look that way and all that stuff. And then you get there and you have to adapt. And you kind of take what comes to you and you just like surf what comes to you, right? I wanted, you can't be so rigid that you don't accept these kinds of opportunities in a sense, right?
Yeah.
So, this was the first portrait. I'm not going to go through all of them.
I just want to ask you though, because this truck seems to be, I wouldn't say outdated, but more vintage. Is it just the angle?
No. So it's an older looking truck. That's why I picked it, because it looked like it had so much character. Yeah. Like I said, I think it's a Peterbilt. That's the brand of truck. And yeah, it's not like one of those more modern Volvos or Macs or with like a plastic grill and like the new lights. So this is why I picked it.
It's fucking perfect.
It's super nice.
Yeah.
It's super nice. And actually interesting, in right here, this reflection there in the grill, that's my flash.
Oh yeah.
Right. So so imagine I walk into the middle of this protest. I've got this big ski bag, which is where I put my C-stands. C-stands are just like heavy metal stands. I've got a 25-pound sandbag. I've got my flash. I've got my roller. And again, it's a full-blown, I think the second week was more busy than the first week. Because the second weekend, everyone saw how great it was on the first weekend. Everyone saw that there was no threat of violence. Everyone saw that all walks of life were going to the protest and participating. Yeah, it wasn't just a bunch of racist, violent truckers. It wasn't like the guy with the leather jacket and the Harley. No, it was just Canadians, like real Canadians. All nationalities, families, kids, whatever. And so the second weekend was so full, and it was cool to go the second weekend and see some of the same truckers who were there and some of the same, like she was there the first weekend. That's why I recognized her. And I said, oh, I took a photo of you. You were on stage last weekend. She's like, yeah. So she was the first person to sit down, and she's actually sitting down on my camera case, again, to frame them within the grill of the truck, because otherwise they would be too high. And so this set of photos, I took 50 photos in total. I'll just show you some of my favorite ones. So, here's one of the photos. I'm going to try to remember so that I'll give you just the photos that I go through.
Sweet.
This one's just...
That's my personal favorite.
That's my favorite photo.
This guy is just...
I mean, he looks like Canada.
He's embodying Canada, yeah. For all those listening, like, really switch over to YouTube, because this photo has been starred in a few Substack, sorry. I think it was the headline was this photo.
Yeah.
Or the other one. I'm not sure.
So this one. So after I came back, I was like, I need people to see this. So I opened a Reddit account, and I tried to post this on the Ottawa Substack subreddit, and they didn't allow me to post this stuff because obviously this instills hate, right? A portrait of a man.
Yeah.
So they just blocked it. So then I was like, okay, I don't know Reddit, but I know Jordan Peterson. So I went on his subreddit and I posted the pictures from the protest. I posted these portraits, and he retweeted these.
Yes.
So he retweeted. It was like a selection of 20, and then I didn't even know. This is the funny thing, is I didn't even know that he or tweeted my photos. But that's why I put it there. I was like, I don't know Reddit, and I know him, and it would be great if people could see it if they pick it up. And then I also had emailed Brett Weinstein and Heather Haying. I hope I'm saying it right. I'm sorry.
Screw up that one.
From the Dark Horse podcast, and she replied to me. Yeah. She answered me like 2 or 3 hours after I sent out the email. It was like 1 or 2 in the morning, and I get the email, right? Because I'm just pacing. I'm like not going to bed because I just need this to come out. So I'm emailing as many people as I can, and then she answers me, and I woke up my wife, and I'm like, Heather emailed me back. This is ridiculous.
No
and
kidding.
I was like, I've been listening to these people since like 2016, 2017.
Yeah,
and I'm like, this is insane, right?
For sure.
And then she's like, I love your photos. Thank you so much. Can I use them for one of my articles? I was like, absolutely. So we wrote each other like a dozen times or so, and we were just asking each other questions of like, what are our thoughts and feelings about what's going on, and how, like, what are we thinking? Like, what was I thinking? And then I was like asking her some questions, and one of my questions was, after taking these portraits, is like, how do we know when what we're doing is correct? Right? How do we know what we're doing is right? And we're not just sort of being taken advantage of? And essentially, rather than answering me in an email, she said, I've been thinking about your question. It's a noble question. And so that's going to be the topic of my Substack. And if it's okay with you, I'm going to use your portraits at the end of it. And I said, absolutely.
Wow.
Go for it. So she answered the question. She put these photos. And then the next day, Barry Weiss messages me on Twitter. And I had like 9 followers at that point, because I was like, okay, I'll open a Twitter account and I'll post it there. And she's like, your photos are amazing. Can I use them for one of my pieces? And I was like, hold on. Barry Weiss is asking me? It's like, of course, we'll talk. So we emailed each other back and forth a few times. And then the piece was written by, I really don't want to get the name wrong. Her name is Rupa. She's the one who actually wrote the piece. If you guys go on my Twitter, you'll see the piece and the person who wrote it. And when that went out, I went from 9 followers on Twitter to over 1,000.
Wow, nice.
And now I'm at like 1,400 because of this work, because of Barry, who posted some of my work, Rupa, who posted my work, Glenn Greenwald took that piece, reposted that. So Glenn Greenwald's the guy who broke the Snowden story. Again, Peterson retweeted Rupa's story. So a lot of people have connected with the photos, connected with the story. Rupa essentially spent almost every day for 2 weeks talking to some of the protesters, interviewing them, asking them why are they here, why is this important to them, and so you actually get the firsthand experience of these people along with these portraits, right? I was out there for about 3.5, 4 hours just taking these portraits. I wouldn't have had time to interview people at the same time. So you really have to pick your strength, and this is my strength. And Rupa was able to interview people. This is this is Ben Amarand. He's been there also for most of the protest. He's a videographer. So him and I have connected, and he started this thing called Unseen Docs. So you guys could look him up. Unseen Docs as in documentaries. And he's been there, and he's been filming, speaking to people, taking photos. And he's done a lot of great work. And what's great is he actually connected a whole bunch of photographers and videographers that he met on Telegram. And so now we're all connected. And so that was thanks to Ben.
Very cool.
It was Rupa Subramanya,
yeah.
which is
Thank
like
you.
the name of a god.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's like another name of Brahman or something.
Oh, wow. Again, this is just one of my favorite portraits as well. This guy actually had a broken femur. He's walking around the protest with his friends, and they're helping him around. He has crutches, and yeah, he's just, a blue-collar worker from Quebec. Sébastien.
Is his eyes red?
No, they're brown. Like
That's that. Yeah.
It's just like a.
No homo. He's got great eyes.
Oh yeah, no. He's.
I love this guy's eyes, man.
He's got a beautiful gaze.
Yeah. With the hat too, man. He's just. It says it all right there.
Mm-hmm. He's a veteran. His name is Alex, and again, I saw him, and I had my wife chase after him because I was like, I want him in the photo. And then he was a super good sport. He's also been there, present most days of the protest, and the reason he's there is because he fought for Canada, he fought for our freedoms, and now he sees them being taken away by tyrannical prime minister.
I gotta say about this photo, there's just so much texture because everything is neutral, like the same color as all the other photos. And then through his glasses, you just get a whole different story.
Yeah, and you see the crowd behind. You can see me in the reflection, right? That's me taking the photo.
Oh, yeah.
And then this is Parliament over there, right?
Yeah.
That's Parliament.
That's so cool.
And you could see how this is a truck that's behind me, sort of parked the in the same direction, right? So you're seeing the wheels of the truck behind. So yeah, I had some people on Reddit be like, I thought you took portraits of people in a studio and then you photoshopped it onto a truck. But then I realized that the background kept changing.
Yeah.
Right? And that there's reflections in their glasses. I was like, yeah, this is done in the middle of the protest. And people are like, how did you fucking do that in the middle of the fucking protest? And it's like, well, find a little corner, set up your lights, and you can do it. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Figure it out.
Yeah. Another one. So this is Joni. I don't know why, but I love this photo of her. Again, she just seems, I don't know, peaceful. And then what's also interesting is as the day went on, the light in the back changed. So it got darker in the back. So again, you could see how there's different protesters behind the truck, but there's also a lot less light. So for instance, there's actually some, this is actually the sun sort of flaring on my lens,
Yeah.
which is why you see that kind of thing, because the sun sort of sets over here, and then there's taller buildings, and it sets behind there. I'll show you a few more. Oh, this guy he's from Laval.
I like this guy.
He's he was there with, this is an Armenian flag. Unfortunately, you can't see it. I tried to get it into frame, but there just wasn't that much room, and he kept moving his arm out. So he had a Canadian flag, an Armenian flag, and he was a riot. He was just going on the top of like mountains of snow and just like waving both his flags and just like yelling like freedom.
Yeah. He seems like a guy with great stories,
Yeah,
like a good company.
yeah.
Do you remember what he did for a living? Like the
Well, so he said now he doesn't do this anymore. But so I gave him my card, and he's like, do you do weddings? And I was like, I have done weddings. He's like, I used to be a DJ. I'll get you some business. And I was like, all right, man. Thanks, man.
that's unexpected. I was not thinking DJ.
Yeah, so he was like an event and wedding DJ. He said for over 10 years. So, oh man, this guy. I mean, he just.
He says it all, man.
Oh man, it's just the colors are beautiful. You know, the fluorescent
great.
blue, fluorescent pink, neon.
great.
Yeah, and so for those
very
who you are
90s.
just listening, yeah, he's wearing this like super 90s snowsuit get up, and his name's Brock. He's, I'd say like mid 50s, late 50s. Yeah, fantastic, beautiful man.
I wonder, like it's such like a childlike palette, you know. Like that. So I wonder if his character was like that.
No, that's actually the thing. I spoke to him a little bit, and he was very nice, but he wasn't this like, from what he's wearing, you'd think he's like super outgoing and childlike, and no, he was just a regular guy.
He's like,
He's
yeah,
just
Brock,
like-
man.
bro.
Yeah,
Brock,
this is
bro.
Brock. So this is Katie. She is what you just described. She like sees us, and she hugged me and my wife, and she was so happy that we're there. And she was like just a little bundle of lightning. She was just this like a Pikachu, just like bzz, 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 like super energetic, super positive. And her and I have interacted a little bit on Instagram and stuff, and she's been following my work now, and she was really nice, and she was there with her friend Zach, who was also a good sport about
Is
it.
she wearing a Canadian flag as a cape?
Yeah, her and Zach. I'll show you. A lot of people were doing that, you know. So this guy was doing it as well. He's got one of those like coureur des bois kind of a hat, and he's got the cape on. The Canadian flag as a cape. This is Zach, right? Katie's friend also had the Canadian flag, and then this is another one which. So this is Odia, was her name, and she was also from Quebec. And yeah, she's wearing like a Canadian flag under her scarf. And I mean, like, we saw her and we're like, oh man, she just looks good. You know, again, so she's, I think she's from the Caribbean. But again, she's like 50 or so, right? So you could see that, you know, she's lived through things, but she had this energy again. She just came up and she was just all smiling. And again, it's kind of like that island vibe energy, where very warm, very welcoming. Yeah, and she had great skin. I mean, come on.
Phenomenal. Beautiful woman.
Yeah. So anyway, these are the photos that really got people paying attention to my work. And so that was great. That was great. I was able to get connected with people who can then tell the story that I couldn't tell, and use my photos as a medium to tell those photos. Yeah. This is Randy. I loved his eyes.
Yeah.
And again, he was a sweet, like humble, soft-spoken man. And when I asked him if I could photograph him, he was like, why? And I was like, well, I want to photograph all kinds of different people. And I was like, and you have really nice eyes. And then he was like very shy and very bashful. And I was like,
He looks like he's
right.
blushing.
And the thing is like, he totally did. He totally does,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But you know, he just doesn't think so, and
Wow.
so
I mean, but these pictures are like, that effect, like, people thought it was a studio, like just the brightness. So you feel like you could just reach out and touch these people, man. And the truck in the background is so,
Yeah.
thematic. It's so
Yeah.
good. It's so like
sure.
it's like it's almost like it's like it's in the picture now, you
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
escape
No.
the theme, the venue, the
Mm.
event,
That's it. And you know, I'm happy that it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, because I think
Right?
it's better.
Hallelujah, for real.
I think it's better. So anyways, that was week 2. Okay. And then I couldn't
So which one gave you COVID?
right? I have no idea. But you know what? Thank you to whoever did, because now
You got your booster.
I got my mega booster. So I'm just going to go over, I'm not going to go over all of these because there's a lot. And
Okay.
again, for your viewers, it's going to be way too long. But so this, the Freedom Convoy, the occupation, it had sort of sprawled out to, I'd say, something like 12 blocks. Okay. So that's like 4 blocks across and 3 blocks down. Okay. That's 12 square blocks. And so on Friday, the police came in and compressed everybody who was in the area towards Parliament. And whoever didn't want to get out of their trucks, they broke the windows and opened the trucks and forcibly pulled them out. And what the police did was they just compressed everyone in, and then they set up a perimeter with vehicles and police officers. So you couldn't get in, right? They compressed everyone and they concentrated them. And then all the trucks were then left vacant, which was really eerie.
Hmm.
And so this was me climbing up onto the roof of a building and getting as close as I can without getting seen. It was pretty cool because I felt like I was playing a video game, because the cops had drones. They had like flying, like not little drones, like we're talking big drones about the size of like probably about 4 feet across with like 6 propellers.
Okay.
And heavy duty cameras, and it makes sense. Rather than having a helicopter, which is slow, expensive, you need 2 people to man it or more if you're manually manning cameras and stuff. They had drones that were out, and they had like 2 or 3 drones just surveying. So I was kind of like playing a bit of a video game, trying to make sure I'm not seen by people on the ground, and
It's like Splinter Cell.
yeah, and being unseen by the drones. And so this is what I'm talking about. They compressed everyone towards Parliament. And these are some of the horses that they were using.
We all know that story.
Yeah, and I spoke to my friend again, and he's like, well, the thing is, the reason why police use horses is because they're very good at controlling crowds, but they're only used for riots, or they're supposed to be implemented for riots. So maybe it was preemptive. Maybe they thought there was going to be a lot more resistance. There was not. And so they took out police on horseback, because you can't really resist a
horse.
1,000-pound horse with a 200-pound rider.
The way it looked like, first they say it's illegal to have kids there. So they're going to start throwing tear gas in a couple days or something like that, right?
Right, yeah.
And then they have these people with all the gear, and they're literally holding a line, like the fucking 300, and like the horses come in front where they make space between the people. They tell them to stay back or they're going to freaking bash them, essentially. They're not, cops are not like all horrible, but they're doing their job, which is kind of fucked up in this moment. And they're pushing people away, making sure they have room. The horses come in to make that room, like to use that room, and then they have a little more room to move forward. Then they get everybody in one space, and essentially, for better or worse, do what they want with them.
Yeah.
And get them, like you said, vacate, compress, disperse.
Yeah. So what they did was like everything that you're saying. And then the reason that they do that, especially at riots, is because once you've kind of cordoned off a crowd, it's really easy to arrest people because they don't have anywhere to go. And you can sort of surround them and overwhelm them with numbers and force. And so they did also arrest... Yes, these are the horses on their way in. This is the next day. So they did also arrest something like 200 people, but they didn't charge them with anything. They just put them in these like quick ties, right? These almost like handcuffs, but they're plastic. And I saw a lineup of like 200 people, and they just kind of like, you know, had them standing around in the cold for a long time. They processed some kind of paperwork, and then they let them go. Again, I don't know the details of what was happening. So this is the next day. This is Saturday. This was around 2:00, and already this is on Spark Street, which is, I think, one street, or it could be two streets south of Wellington. So they've, at this point, already gone from Parliament and pushed everybody out and away from Parliament, and they've made a line. And so here you've got, this is called a Bearcat. It's an armored vehicle with a turret on top. I don't know what the turret was. I don't know if it was rubber bullets. I don't know if it could have also been some sort of like a pepper spray. I don't know if it could have also been, they're called LRADs, which is like this sound disruption device. I
Blows
don't.
your eardrums.
No,
No.
it just kind of makes you lose bodily function. Like you just
It's
can't
like sound
think.
waves.
Yeah, it's just sound waves that are
Jeez.
directed at people, and they're collimated too. So it's not just spread out to like they could point it pretty
Wow.
accurately to a small section of a crowd, and it just like makes you not able to think, hear, whatever, and people just kind of get very disoriented. Some people throw up. It's this really weird sound weapon, which is cool and non-destructive, which is really nice. So,
Yeah, that's it. It's like, get out of here, or I'll make you very uncomfortable.
well, it's like I'd rather vomit from sound than
get
be
tased or something.
yeah,
shot.
or beaten and dragged by 5 cops,
I
right?
saw one time, a long time ago there, those the student protests at the Red Square and everything.
Oh yeah.
There was someone like annoying a cop car, and they were trying to kind of keep it in a direction, like a parade, like stay on where you're supposed to go.
Mm-hmm.
And he had this thing, like it's just a squad car, like a normal cop car, but it just went like boof, like this huge like this low like beat, and
Okay.
the girl just went and like ran away from the car. And I was like half a block away, like in a window, but I went like,
You, like,
what
felt
was
it.
that? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what that was. I never looked it up. I don't know what that was, but it just went like oosh.
Yeah.
And I just went, okay, they can do that.
Yeah, I mean they can do that, and the other thing too is so he was actually a paramedic, and he was pepper sprayed. Like he was volunteering there as by profession he's a paramedic. He was there as a protester, and they pepper sprayed him. So this, well, I'll show you something closer. So
That's the guys I was talking about. Yeah.
this was extremely intimidating. And that is what I was going to get at is when we started hearing them firing at the crowds with these, I don't know if they're like rubber grenades or tear gas grenades or something, but that noise is also extremely jarring and intimidating. So I could only imagine, like, if you're right next to this squad car and the whole thing just goes into this like But yeah, this is the kind of
It's like a
thing.
clap.
This is the kind of thing where I was like, what the fuck is going on?
This is like, for people listening, this is like stormtrooper shit. We're looking at a bunch of cops.
You're wearing gas masks.
Yeah.
Gas
and
mask, this
heavily geared.
reflected visor
One
that
of
is,
them, oh, sorry, continue.
bulletproof vests.
yeah, and yeah, one
Like
of them.
this looks like a machine gun. Like obviously it's not, but it's
Well,
for someone who's never seen a gun.
Well, this is
before.
like some automatic weapon with a sight and everything. Like that's
Yeah.
murder weapon, but that's a camera. This
Oh
guy's-
yeah,
this guy's like a selfie
this
stick.
guy has a camera. Yeah. Well, so he's kind of what I was talking about before. People videoing and taking photos of the crowd, but yeah, he very well could have had. This could be like live ammo. They also have handguns, but I only saw and interacted with people with whether it were rubber bullets or canisters that they were firing at us.
Did they fire it?
Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah, I'll get to that. So I don't know what kind of gun that is, or if it's only sort of like a crowd dispersion weapon. I don't know. But I don't know. It just seemed like a very strange sight to be at your nation's capital during a protest, and this is what you're met with. There's another man who was pepper sprayed. This guy just, again, it's sometimes you see certain kinds of faces and you just connect with how they look. Again, so this was a group of, I'd say maybe 5 or 6 Sikh men. I don't know if they're truck drivers or not, but they were sort of singing songs in their language. They had flags, and they were there. And like I said, they're a group of 6 or so.
That's a
Cool
great
picture,
shot, bro.
man.
Yeah, so that's it. I was trying to get the reflection of the police
glasses, man,
in the
they-
glasses.
It brings so much emotion and understanding just from reflection.
Like tension in the
Yeah.
photo.
Mm.
Like really, yeah.
It's really well done.
Again, just a lot of. So, she was a school teacher who was just pleading with the police, telling them that she's lost her job. She can't teach the kids that she loves. She feels like she's a criminal. She feels like she has no rights, and she was just pleading to the police, and this is another woman who was doing the same. And I feel like some of the police were not happy with what they were brought in to do. So you could see that this guy's from Calgary. You're going to see different patches from different places, and
I don't know if it's the photo, but he definitely looks like he's remorseful there.
yeah.
Contemplative, at least.
Yeah, I mean, again, I took photos of him because he was right in front of them and he was listening. This is the weird thing is we would talk to the police and the police were talking to us like we're normal people, like they're normal people. And then with the flip of a switch, they just start yelling and checking into us with their batons.
Like there's just a line in the sand or someone's
It-
talking to them.
No. Yeah, it's just like, they get orders from behind like, oh, okay, now we have to push. Boom. And they just start hitting and pushing and yelling. And then that's when the guy will see the photos of the guy. And this is what was happening most of the time. Music was being played. People were dancing. And everyone was just saying, peace and singing the national anthem. And I do think it was difficult for some of these police officers who, again, they're people. They have families and they're there and they're told to, turn on civilians who are completely peaceful. At least the section that I was on, like I said, I was on Banks and Spark Street. You had people with big loudspeakers just playing music and dancing, and then we'd break into chants of like freedom, liberté. We'd sing the national anthem. This guy was at the back just sort of saying to everybody, you're in the right place. You're doing the right thing. We're here for Canada. And he has stickers on his megaphone. It says "Love Heals." And then this is the face that we see preventing us from protesting, preventing us from walking on Parliament grounds. And so this is one of those kind of grenade launchers that it lobs, like either it's a large rubber grenade or tear gas. Like they pepper sprayed us a few times. I was never directly pepper sprayed, but you smell it in the air, and like it made people cough and disperse because you just can't breathe. Again, people just dancing, singing. And some people came prepared.
This guy's got a gas mask ready.
Yeah.
This guy's great.
Yeah, he's got great eyes too.
Wow.
I wish he was there on week 2. That he would have been a great subject.
He's great. Some people, they just have it.
Yeah. And it's funny because some people you see them, like I'm starting to learn this slowly. People who might look regular, I could see how they would look interesting, or something would stand out more in a photo. So
That's I see what you're saying.
yeah. So, this is nightfall now. And essentially, it's hard to explain with these photos because these are mostly portraits of people from the crowd. He was a pastor, and so he started sort of reciting verses of the Bible and saying that, again, there's all different kinds of, all walks of life are there, and how it's our God-given right to be free in Canada, and, So the photos I took before were behind this line, okay? And so this was an intersection, so they had lines of cops here, here, and here. And so what they did was they just pushed out and made 3 streets, kind of funneled into one street. And like I said, every few hours they would just be told, go, push, and then they would just like push us through and push us back.
Well, let me ask you, when they're condensing you guys into like this bundle, is there a way out if someone wants to leave?
So that's what I was worried about, because we're just focused on them. And then at a certain point when they're pushing, I was like, what the fuck's behind me, right? So like I said, they were pushing us, not condensing us. That was on Friday. They were actually dispersing us away and out
I see.
from Parliament grounds.
Okay.
So behind us was the rest of Ottawa,
I see.
right? So you could get there actually from like anywhere by foot. They had like, let's say 5 blocks south of this, they had police cars and blockades. So yeah, which was different from Friday. Friday they had that, but you couldn't go in, and they were compressing people towards Parliament. So yeah, this is kind of like the lines that were made by the police. You had like 3-4 rows of cops, and behind them you had all kinds of trucks and other police that would sort of sub in, and they would just like rotate. And again, the protesters were peaceful, and I have to be 100% honest with what I saw that the cops did. They could have destroyed us, and they didn't. They pushed us back with force, but it was never the full extent that they had access to, and I think it was measured. Okay, I can't, it was frightening, and it adrenaline was high. I'll show you this set of photos that I took from on top of a bus shelter at some point. But I did not see anybody get beat down, trampled, pulled away. People were getting checked like in hockey with their batons. A few cops swung at people to get them back because they were just passively standing and resisting, and they were pushing them back. We got, like I said, pepper sprayed. We got hit with tear gas or rubber grenades. Again, like they were shooting almost point blank at people at their backs, and these people weren't going down, right? So they were using means that hurt, that made people go away, but that were not
Really harmful or lethal. Or
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like
Could have been worse.
it's not that it could have been worse. I think it's just yesterday I was a little bit like, I was thinking about it again, and what was hitting me the most is that they could have done whatever they wanted, right? The monopoly of violence was in front of us, and they had access to real weapons. They had armored vehicles. They could have destroyed us, and they did not. We didn't give them a reason to, right? The protest was peaceful. You're going to see some photos of people kneeling, praying for the police, showing signs of peace. So they couldn't justify completely, charging at the crowd, and they didn't. They slowly, methodically, and with measure pushed us back, and they did that in order so that they could erect walls around the streets. So here's one of these, like, I just call him the tank, because he was just walking around fully decked out, and just, he was really aggressive. This guy was super aggressive too, and he's from Vancouver, and they're just like body checking. But at the same time, I'm telling you, they could have done anything they wanted. They could have just taken fire trucks and sprayed the protesters with water, and we wouldn't have lasted 2 hours, because it's minus 20. They could have just done that.
And it's over.
Really, like, we would have been completely covered in ice.
Yeah.
You know, they could have just sprayed the whole crowd with mace, just like with a jet of mace. They could have done that. They didn't do it. So I have to be honest. So this is, I'm like front, and I'm like, I just don't want my camera to break. So they're charging, and I'm just like running back and just like one-handing it, because, and I'm like, okay, you could hit me, it's gonna suck, but I just don't want my camera to break.
Cameras don't heal.
No.
You're a pro, man.
No. Yeah, so he's getting checked. Yeah, I think he got tripped down. He got hit a few times.
Jeez.
Like billy clubs, like it's just wood.
Yeah, it's just wood with a leather strap on one end. Again, so that, you know, they won't lose it if someone tries to pull it out. And they would just advance whenever they were told to advance, and they would push the crowd. And this is what most of the protesters that I was around were giving back, just peace. So this guy climbed up onto a bus stop, and I was like, first off, love the hat, love the beard, love the flag. And after he came down, I was like, I'm going to go up there. So then I climbed up. And so this is me from the top of the bus shelter. And you can very distinctly see the division between the protesters and the police. And then this was, you know, a great angle with this lone protester facing off the police. Anyway, I didn't show any, put any of the photos of, at some point, the police line rushed past the bus shelter. So they went this way. And I was on the top of the bus shelter, and I'm like, holy fuck, I'm behind enemy lines. So then, and then they put the spotlight on me, and I was like, holy shit. So I just like put my hands up, and I'm just like, and then two cops are looking at me, and they're like, are you media? And I was like, yeah, I'm media. I'm taking photos. They're like, all right. So they let me down. They both grab me like shoulder, and they just like drive me through. And I'm going through like 3, 4, 5 lines of cops, and they're just pushing me aside, and they just like throw me on the other side. Jeez. And I was like, cool. You know, it's like, I wasn't going to fucking fight back. I was like, yo, man, I'm on the other side because you guys pushed past the bus shelter.
That's wild.
Yeah. But again, you know, they were aggressive, assertive. They helped me down, and then they just pushed me out, and that was it, right? Technically, they could have done whatever they wanted. They could have just right there arrested me. You know, I was picked off from the crowd.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't see any arrests. That's the other thing, you know. I saw some people, like I said, getting roughed up. I was a little roughed up because I was at the front. But, you know, it's like they were checking, and it like hit my hand or something, and I'm fine. And I'm not saying it's like it's okay. What I'm, and this is kind of, it's almost like this, you know, Stockholm syndrome kind of thing. I'm just like, they could have done so much worse, and they didn't. And so I appreciate that. You know, that's.
Well, I think it's also because the crowd itself was not what
was
they were
not violent.
Anticipating, let's say.
Yeah.
You
Again, yeah, they're probably planning for the absolute worst circumstances, and they're probably also happy that none of that presented itself. Because
I'm sure there's a few that would want chaos, and then you see videos of them because some cops were just very aggressive to certain individuals, but for the most part, these people just want to go home without much conflict, just like anyone else.
There's always a few on both sides that want a little.
That's what I was going to say, is I could also tell that there were people in the crowd, in the protesters crowd, who, you know, they're kind of hotheads. They kind of, it's almost like another version of like death by cop.
Yeah.
They wanted to get into a confrontation. They were the ones that were insulting the police. But, you know, I could count them on one hand. The guys who are really like, I want this to get a little crazy, or I want to be a bit of a martyr.
Yeah.
I want to get hit, and then I want someone to take a picture of it, and I want that to go up.
Yeah.
But the crowd itself was really, it just kept just reverting back to peace, reverting back to, you know, the national anthem, reverting back to thanking the police. And so this is essentially what they wanted to do. They pushed us all the way out, and then halfway through the road, they erected this 10-foot tall sort of metal fence it's one fence here, one fence there, and then they're zigzagging across for structure. So that's the thing, the crowd, and then at the end, just like almost like at the end of a hockey game, right? The crowd spontaneously just like laid itself out like it was a hockey team, and then it just happened like that.
That's cool. That's a great photo, man.
And it was just like, they're so fucking Canadian, man.
Yeah.
We're so fucking Canadian. Like most of the flags are on hockey sticks, for instance. Like this is such a Canadian photo. You could have, this could be the, you know, the Canadians get to finals or win a Stanley Cup. We know that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
But like, you know what I mean? Like this could be, although if this was the Canadians winning the Stanley Cup, there would actually be fire and chaos in the background, because that's what we're known for.
Yeah.
But anyway, so, you know, I have a lot more photos, but I didn't think we should go through them all. It takes a lot of time, and some of your listeners aren't watching. So
For the ones that have trekked through us in this journey, you guys are the best.
yeah,
But we love you all anyway.
yeah.
If you only listened to all that, you're a little weird. I'm
Yeah,
judging you.
yeah,
I gotta
I
be
guess
honest.
so.
No,
but
but
they're great photos, man. We're
but
just
some
getting
people-
lost in the-
I've noticed I catch myself something, not even listening to a podcast, and it just plays out, and I was just doing things.
and then
Sure.
20 minutes later, like, are they showing us pictures?
So
Yeah.
so if they're listening, let's
idiots.
pop their little distraction bubble and be like, hey, welcome back.
Welcome back, guys.
They're
So
like, we're just like cleaning the dishes, like, oh fuck.
So, so the Emergencies Act went through.
the Emergencies
Yeah.
Act went through.
How
this,
do you feel after really being in the mud, in the middle of all that? I mean, the light and the fun and the people, and then the cops kind of popping the bubble, so to speak. And like, is the bubble really popped, or did they just kind of get people off the steps? You know, like
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is there are a lot of other protests popping up around the country
in the world.
and the world, right?
Mhm.
That was kind of another sentiment that the crowd had. It was like, the world is watching, guys, so we need to be
Set the example.
exactly. We have to set the example. We have to show that we're peaceful. We have to show that, because otherwise, it's easy to, at that point, paint a picture that we're
Mhm.
just riotous. I keep saying we, but I was really there to photograph what was happening. And I'm not just saying that to save my butt. Like I'm still at this point where I definitely agree with the idea of ending mandates. I definitely agree with ending vaccine passports. Absolutely. I'm still unsure as to whether or not, you know, a almost 4-week occupation, and I don't even mean occupation in a derogatory sense. I almost mean it, you know, like
Literally.
Occupy Wall Street, for instance. That was a movement, and it had some noble causes. It also had some fringe elements, and the same here. Like there were people who were opportunistic, and they saw this as a platform, and they were talking about things that were unrelated to the main purpose of the protest. So anyways, how do I feel? Well, I'm really worried about this whole Emergencies Act being accepted and extended. Well, extended for 30 days, right? So as of February 14th, and so, you know, March, what would that be, 11th or 12th? Maybe they will, they'll have another vote, and it might be extended again. I don't know. I don't think the Emergencies Act was necessary. Technically, today they could have just They could have just said, okay, fine, no Emergencies Act. We did what we came to do. It's done. There's no one around Parliament, right? There's almost no truckers left. There's no one protesting around Ottawa anymore. So they came for what they...
It's when you give the government a
they needed
chance,
to do.
man. When you give them a chance to take more power, they'll do it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what it comes down to. It's
Yeah.
This is an opportunity for to implement new measures. And the thing is, this Emergency Act, whatever all the rules are of it, I don't know them by heart, but you can Google it. But once it's done, I'm sure there's going to be a couple things that they added that's not going to go away.
Right. Well, like the ability for the Canadian government to freeze assets without a warrant. That's something
That might
that
stick.
that he actually wants to put forward.
There you go. And if that everything else gets taken away and that stays, that's a huge loss for Canadians.
Sure.
And that's how they do it. And they over time, it's like Jordan Peterson was saying, it's inch by inch. And then 20 years later, they've taken how many miles? You know?
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, Dan, thank you for coming on here and sharing this.
Nate, Sammy, thank you guys. The fact that you guys do this thing with the show and tell, I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's a way for people to see what's actually going on, and you know, it's alternative media, which is amazing. So you guys are doing a great job. Really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. I mean, like,
You have an open invitation every time.
for sure. But dude, yeah, like,
I messaged you and I'm like, emergency podcast. Let's do
Yeah,
it.
let's
That's what it is for this one.
Yeah,
Because I was like, you know, this just happened. Emergencies Act is going on. We need a podcast like before it goes through.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that, man.
and if the next episode is us visiting you in the prison, we'll be there, man. I'm just kidding.
Jeez.
live
Fantastic.
behind the bar.
Yeah, yeah.
I got your bail, bro. I'll do what I can.
We'll be in there with him, man. What are you talking
Yeah,
about?
we're a part of this fucking thing.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's gonna get there,
No.
but
But-
anyways,
Well, you never know with these kind of things, but you know, everyone, that's all we got for you, and peace and love.
You're amazing, bro.
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
thanks, man.
Really, really
Honestly.
good stuff.
Thank you.
Really good stuff, bro. I'm so happy that your portraits took off the way they did. You know, getting retweeted by those names and having dialogue with Heather, it's super cool.
Yeah, and so actually tomorrow she's gonna be posting another piece on her Substack with these photos. So
Amazing.
yeah, stay tuned and read up. It's Natural Selections. That's her Substack, and she has great work. Not all of it's her work too. She actually has like sort of guest writers. So a few of them.
What's it called again?
Natural Selections.
Okay, I thought it was like national selection. I thought it was
No, no,
clever
no.
or something. It's
No,
just
no, no.
natural selection.
Natural Selections.
Still a good name.
Oh yeah. So yeah, she'll have some of my photos up there tomorrow.
Sweet. And for all those that want to follow Dan, Instagram, more on Twitter or
Aponte. Oh no, wait. What was your
Dan?
Twitter called?
Yeah.
Yeah, so on both Instagram and Twitter, it's at just_Dan_things with a Z.
With a Z.
The other ones were taken, so I had to go with that. And that's the same Twitter, Instagram, and you could check out my website, www.danaponte.ca/about. But if you just go on CA, you're going to see a lot of my past work, which is like weddings, portraits, things like that. It's not really what I've been doing that much lately, especially with COVID. But if you go to my About section, you'll read a little bit about my story and some of my street photography.
Sweet. All right, everyone.
Good. Thanks, man.
Stay frosty.
Stay.
Curious.
Boom.